YouTube Chopper. Hello, hello. Yun, my mic is okay. Ano yan? Did you popo? Eh? Did you popo? What are you looking at? Grabe, naglalagas na lang yung ano. Oh, look mo, oh. Ayan. Alat ka. Wag ka dyan, mag-aaral ako. I'm going to study. Wag ka dyan, mainit dyan. Ginubugan ng CPU eh. Play na ikaw, you play. Hello, hello? Hello, hello, hello? Okay. If I finish this quickly. Oh no, I haven't. Sabihin ko. Gulo-gulo ko. Ba't nga tayo na background music? Umuulan kasi ang background music eh. Okay ta. Okay nga. Tingnan natin ito parang ganda ng ng video. Nakaka-relax. Tayo ng bit. Ito capture. Saan na ba tayo? Alam ko, humingi ako ng hand off dito eh. Turn. Last one. There we go. Sakto. 10 pages. Okay, so this is more of diagramming. Diagramming and presenting architecture. Newly minted architects often comment on how surprised they are at how varied the job is outside of technical knowledge and experience, which enable their move into the architectural to begin with. In particular, effective communication becomes critical to an architect's success. No matter how brilliant an architect's critical ideas, if they can't convince managers to fund them and developers to build them, their brilliance will never manifest. Diagramming and representing architectures are two identical soft skills for architects, while entire books exist about each topic. We will hit some particular highlights for each. Those two topics appear together because they have a few similar characteristics. Each forms an important visual representation of an architecture vision, presenting using different medias. Actually, this is the I really wanted to have find a tech. Actually, when I'm trying to find a technique to easily particularly this one convey the system, because I usually do draw.io, but somehow it's only for technical people, so I wanted to have a way to find. I'm currently finding a way to wanted to learn how to create diagrams that is for non-technical people. Hey, how are you software? Are you new software? Am I a new software engineer or what do you mean? I'm already a developer, already working professionally. So if you mean by that, diagramming and presenting architecture are two critical soft skills for architects. While entire books exist about each topic, these two topics appear together because they have a few similar characteristics. Each forms an important visual representation. Are you at software environment? No. I'm already working as a software developer. So, but I'm currently quite new to the software architecture, the real software architecture. Because the software architecture, what I know is just actually just a like 5% of what I studied in the book. So on software architecture, yes, I'm new. These two topics appear together because it's important visual representation of vision presented visually. So I'm trying to gain knowledge for software architecture since I'm already doing a lot of coding. So might as well upgrade my skills to learn software architecture, and so that I can build better applications. And also I can use it in vibe coding to easily or instruct better the AI. So that's why I'm learning this software architecture. But after this, I will try to learn first. But after this book, I will try to learn next is the building large language model or AI related topics. I will resume the part 2 of this study for software architecture next year. So I'm going to study. I plan to study the designing data intensive applications. But I'll try to keep practicing this book. So I will try to ask ChatGPT to provide me some quizzes, let's say daily quizzes. So just to not forget this, forget the learnings that I
experience in this book. Visually describing an architecture, the creator often must show the architectural plan. We'll likely show an overview of the entire architecture topology, then drill into individual parts of the interface and details. At work, I do software development. Then voluntarily doing some software architecting just to practice the things that I learned in the book. But my role in work is software developer. Though it's kind of hybrid. Actually, it's kind of hybrid. Aside from software developer, sometimes we do other stuff. But still on the technical. But I also do what do you call this one? Personal projects. Sometimes you will see me live doing coding. So currently I'm trying to experiment and trying to learn if I can develop my own AI coding assistant. So I'm using that use case to learn also AI. So hopefully, slowly I can transition to software architecture. Even though at my work it's not my role, but I'll try. Present consistency is the practice of always showing the relationship between parts of architecture and the entire specification and function. When an architect wanted to describe the details on how plugins relate to one another in the single language solution, the architecture would show the entire topology, then they include the plugin structure showing the relationship. Relationship. Careful use of representation and consistency ensures that viewers understand the scope of being present, eliminating a common source of confusion. Diagramming. The topology of architecture is always interest to architects and developers because it captures how the structure fits together and forms a valuable shared understanding of clusters. Therefore, architects should hone their diagramming skills to raise our shadows. The current generation of diagramming tools for architects is extremely powerful and an architecture learned of choice degree. However, before going to a nice tool, don't neglect low-fidelity artifacts, especially early in the design process, leading to general design artifacts. Early prevents architects from becoming overly attached to what they have created. An anti-pattern meaning the irrational artifact attached to the pattern. What is that? Irrational artifact attachment is the proportional relationship between a person's irrational attachment to some artifact and how long it will produce. If an architect creates a beautiful diagram using something like Visio, is Visio still exists today? I haven't opened I haven't opened Visio since college. That takes 2 hours. They have an irrational attachment to that artifact that's roughly proportional to the amount of time invested. Which also means they will be more attached to a 4-hour diagram than a 2-hour. One of the benefits to low ritual approach used in agile software development revolves around creating just-in-time artifacts with a little ceremony as possible. This helps explain the dedication of agilists to index cards and quick sticky notes. Using low-tech tools lets team members probably what's not right, willing them to experiment and allow them to nature of the artifact image through revision, collaboration, and discussion. Okay. Proportionation between the some artifact. It's a beautiful diagram. Also means they will be more attached to a 4-hour diagram than a 2-hour. One of the benefits. I don't quite understand this. So meaning, irrational artifact attachment means architect tends to be more attached to the things that he or she made that took longer than, I don't know. What is the national art? What is that? National artifact. A is a cognitive bias where teams or architects cling to an existing artifact code, framework, architecture, tool, or design, even when it's no longer the best choice. I see. So it's like a sentimental. There's a sentimental value on that code base. Okay. Right. Happen usually by human factors, not technical. Sunk cost fallacy. We already invested a lot in this. Familiarity bias. We know this stuff, so let's keep using it. I don't think I fall under this one because I always tried a lot of things. You built this, it must be good. Okay. Fear of change, refactoring, replacing is risky. Organizational inertia, this is how we've always done it. Okay. Yeah. This one is very common. Organizational inertia. So situation, system started as microservice. Now scale is small and complexity is high. But team says, we already invested in microservices, let's keep it. Even if a modular monolith would be better. I think this one where this analysis will be useful, right? And also restorming analysis, discussing the previous chapters. We already standardized on Kafka. Tools become a constraint instead of enable. Legacy code protection. Old module is fragile and hard to change. Everyone avoids touching it. Resort workarounds piled up. System becomes more complex. Already happened, so we're now trying to refactor in legacy of what we are doing. Over-engineering reuse. Forcing reuse of a shared service even when it doesn't fit new requirements. Yeah. Actually, this one is the hardest. Knowing when you are already over-engineering. By exiting this misaligned architecture, system no longer fits current scale, business needs, performance requirements. Increase complexity, you keep adding layers just to avoid changing the artifact. Has too much abstraction, OOP. Slower evolution, harder to adapt, better solution, technical depth accumulates. For decision making, decisions are based on what we already have instead of what we actually need. Yeah. So architecture in IAA is not about being wrong. Initially, it's about failing to reevaluate decision over time. Even good decisions become bad when context changes, skill changes, requirement. True. It's really true. It's always based on the current situation. Detection as would we choose to this today? If starting from scratch, would you pick the same solution? Actually, no. I always try to do the best and suited solution, the best possible solution. Are we working around it? Adding hacks, adding layers, avoid changing changes. Is it blocking progress, slow development, limiting design options? Is justification emotional statement? We already built this, we're used to it. Let's flag. Auto-medicate, regular architecture reviews, revisit decision, reassess trade-offs. Use ADRs, yeah. You're at risk if you commit too early. Or one architecture style, one workflow model. Example, if later your orchestration needs more flexibility, but you say we already built it this way, that's IAA. Decisions are temporary, context is dynamic. Wait, so does following standards leads to IAA? Let's say implementing SSO, like following the OAuth 2 This is the OIDC specification. Okay. Following standards like OIDC doesn't in Russia. In fact, standards usually reduce risk and improve architecture quality. IAA only happens when you cling to a solution beyond its useful context, or not when you adopt well-chosen standard. Okay, that's already it's now answered. We use OIDC, the standards, blah blah. Okay, let's continue. The page. Next topic. So I'm already satisfied with what I read. Okay, an architect favorites preferred variation on the cell phone photo of a whiteboard along with the inevitable do not erase imperative. Uses a tablet attachment to an overhead projector rather than a whiteboard. This offers several advantages. First, the tablet has an unlimited canvas and can fit as many drawings that a team might need. Second, it allows copy-paste what-if scenarios that obscure the original when done on a whiteboard. Third, images captured on a tablet are already digitized and don't have the inevitable glare associated with cell phone photos of whiteboard. Eventually, an architect needs to create nice diagrams in a fancy tool, but make sure the team has iterated on the design sufficiently to invest time in capturing something. Powerful tools exist to create diagrams on every platform. While we don't necessarily advocate one another, we quite happily use OmniGraffle for all diagrams in this book. Architects should look for at least these baseline features. Wait, is OmniGraffle still alive today? I used that way before 2019 or 2018 when I was interested, or I was so hooked on solutions architecting AWS. I use it a lot. I'm not sure if it's still alive today. Ano pa usually prerequisite or knowledge bago po basahin yun? For me, ano lang naman, parang there's no prerequisite for this one. Because though there is like a preferred what do you call this one, preference. So let's say you're coming from a developer perspective, so it's easy to relate when you're coming from a developer perspective here. But I don't think there's a hard prerequisite just to read this book, because it's actually a fundamental book. So meaning it doesn't have some prerequisite. So it's just going to teach you almost the I think the high level of software architecting, but not too high level. If you get what I mean. You can still read this if you're not a developer, because this one is not more on code. It's more of a structure, more on structures. So I only see few codes here, like 2 to 3 pages, I guess, and then and then the rest is more on structures, system structures. Wait, yeah. Speaking of OmniGraffle, is it active? Still active today? I'm using this before. Yeah, it's a Mac. Is it still up? Oh, I'm not using Mac today. OmniGraffle. No. I might get I might get a warning again from TikTok. Whenever I open and play a YouTube video, I always get copyright strike. So layers. Drawing tools often support layers for each architecture should learn. A layer allows the drawing to link a group of items together logically to enable hiding showing individual layer. Using layer, an architect can build a comprehensive diagram but hide overwhelming details when they aren't necessary. Using layers allows architect to incrementally build pictures for presentation. See incremental builds. Page 322. Okay. Stencil templates. Stencil allow this is actually quite easy to understand. Magnets. Many drawing tool offer assistance when drawing line between shapes. Magnets represent the place on those shapes where lines snap. Okay. In addition to these specific tools, the tool should of course support line colors. UML, Unified Modeling Language, was a standard that three competing design philosophies that coexisted in 1980. It was supposed to be the best of all worlds, but like many things designed by committee, failed to create much impact outside organization that mandated its use. Architects and developers still use UML class and sequence diagram to communicate structure and workflow, but most of the other UML diagrams types have fallen into disuse. C4 model. Context represents the entire context of system, including the roles of users and their dependency. Ito. Hindi, not the bomb. I'm going to study this later. Context represents the entire context of the system, including the roles of users and external dependencies. Container, physical and often logical deployment boundaries and context within the architecture. This view forms a good meeting point for operations and architects. Component. The component view of the system is mostly neatly aligns with an architect's view of system. Class. Shipper uses the same style of class derived from UL, which are effective, so there's no need to replace them. If a company seeks to standardize on a diagramming technique, Shipper offers good alternative. However, like all technical diagramming tools, it suffers from an inability to express every kind of design architecture must undertake. Shipper is both suited for monolithic architectures where the container and component relationships may differ, and less suited to distributed architecture such as microservices. Archimate. Open source architecture modeling language to support description, analysis, and visualization. Archimate. Okay, I already saw this, but I prefer draw.io than this. Diagramming guidelines. Regardless of where architect chooses the own modeling, one of the formal ones they use build their own style when diagramming and should feel free to borrow from representative think effective. Here are the general guidelines. Make sure all elements of the diagram hand titles are well known to the audience. Use rotation and other effects to make style sticky to the thing they associated. Lines should be thick enough to see well. If the lines indicate information flow, then use arrow to indicate direction or two-way traffic. Different types of arrowhead might suggest different semantics, but architecture should be consistent. Generally, one of the few standards that exist in architecture diagram is the solid lines to then synchronous communication and dotted lines. Yun pala yun? Okay. Yun pala ibig sabihin, ano? Asynchronous pala pag dotted lines. Shapes. While the formal modeling language describes all standard shapes, no pervasive standard shape exists across software development world, as each architecture tends to make their own standard set of shapes, sometimes spreading those across organization, labels, colors. If shape are ambiguous properties, so include a key on the diagram. What shape represent? Nothing is worse than a diagram that leads to misrepresentation. Presenting. The other soft skill required by modern architects is the ability to conduct effective presentation tooling like PowerPoint and Keynote. These tools are the lingua franca of modern organization, and where people throughout the organization expect competent use of these tools. Neil, one of the co-authors of this book, wrote a book series, Presentation Patterns, about taking the pattern anti-pattern approach common in the software world and applying to a technical presentation. Presentation patterns makes an important observation about the fundamental difference between creating a document versus a presentation to make case. Presenting the speaker has two information channels, verbal visually, by placing too much text on the slide and then saying essentially the same words. The presenter is overloading one information channel and starving the other. The better solution to this front is to use incremental bits for slide, building up hopefully graphical information as needed rather than all at once. Yeah. For example, say that architect creates a presentation explaining the problem using feature branching and want to talk about negative consequences for keeping branching alive too long. Bad version of slide showing a negative anti-pattern. In figure 21-3, if the presenter shows the entire slide right away, the audience can see something bad happens toward the end, but they have to wait for explosion to get to that point. Instead, the architect should use the name image as obscure part of and shows sliding using a borderless white box. Expose a portion of by performing a build out uncovering box. Okay, so meaning it's kinda broken. Is it? Oh yeah, it's kind of so somehow the slides is what do you call this one? Cut per slide. So this one is per slide 1, 2, 3, something like that. So incremental, okay. In figure 21 dashboard, the presenter still has a fighting chance of keeping some suspense alive, making the talk inherently more interesting. Using animation and text in conjunction with incremental bits allows the presenter to make more compelling, entertaining presentation. So infotech versus presentation. Some architects build slide decks in tools like PowerPoint and Keynote but never actually present them. Other they are emailed around like magazine article and HTML they're at their own pace. Infodecks are slide decks that are not meant to be projected but rather summarize information graphically, essentially using presentation tools as desktop publishing package. Difference between these two images is comprehensiveness of content and use transition and animation. If someone is going to flip through the deck like a magazine, are meant to be standalone. They contain all information the creator wants to convey when doing a presentation. The slides are purposely meant to be half of the presentation, the half being the person standing. There we go. Yeah, true. So you don't put everything in the PowerPoint. Slides are half the story. A common mistake the presenters make is building the entire content of the presentation into slides. However, if the slides are comprehensive, the presenter should spare everyone time of sitting through a presentation, just even it or everyone as tech. Presenters make the mistake of adding too much material to slides when they make an important move more powerful. Remember, presenters have two information channels, so using them strategically can add more punch to the message. An example of this is strategic invisibility. Blank slide with presentation refocus attention slowly on the speaker. If someone has two information channels, slides and speaker, and turn one of them off the slides, it automatically adds more emphasis to the speaker. Thus, it If a presenter wants to make a point, insert a blank slide. Everyone in the room will focus their attention back on the speaker. Oh, okay. Because they are now the only interesting thing in the room. Makes sense. Okay yun Maglalagay kayo ng blank slide. So sa bagay, wala na silang babasahin doon. So they will not keep an eye on that slide. Instead, so focus sa nagsasalita. Learning the basics of a presentation tool and a few techniques to make presentation better in addition to the skill of setup architect must convince people to sign onto their vision. The modern way corporate softbox at our presentation towards learning to use them well. Okay. Interesting. So I'm going back to ChatGPT. So let's see what ChatGPT will say to me. I'm actually not taking the quizzes anymore since somehow it's not what do you call this one? It's not worth taking it. I think it's worth taking the quizzes during part 1 and part 2 since those two chapters are the most critical part. Well, this is a dense but practical chapter. Architect level is breaking architecture to stability individual. That Roy is shared understanding from the diagram creates a shared understanding of the point. What this really means is diagram is not a documentation, not an art, not design output. It's a synchronization tool. Failure mode. If your teams interpret your drawing differently, you have multiple architecture in production. Irrationally, artifact attachment very important. Why this matter later? This is not a personal bias. Resisting better design depending on outdated models. Correction to earlier chapters. This directly conflict with either evolution or sleep and change. Tell a story that dump information. Okay. Parang ano na lang to parang dessert na lang tong mga to. $325 up to $346. think I will continue this later. So for this Sunday, this is my target. Finish chapter 22, and then probably I will take a break Monday on this of architecture, and then I'll continue on Tuesday, Wednesday. So Monday probably I'll do clothing. No, I think I'll do Sunday. Before to 7. Okay. Sunday, Monday. And this one is Tuesday. So by Wednesday, I should be, or Friday, like Wednesday, Friday, I should be starting the LLM. Okay. So I'll continue this chapter 22 later. I need to set some pages pala. But I think so that I can. This is a lot of reading. There's diagrams here. Architect personalities. Armchair architect. Effective architect. Control freak architect. Ano po mas prefer nyo? Big company or startup? Depende yan sa parang goal mo. If you're aftering high salary, usually big companies are the one that's providing big salaries. Though there are some startups that are gives higher salaries then. Pero yun. And then if you wanted to also, if you're aftering also better structure and also better processes, most of the time big companies are the one that has that already established. Then startup, kasi startup is more ano pa lang siya eh. Para again, nag-i-start pa lang siya from the word it's a startup. So nag-i-start pa lang siya. So meaning bago pa lang siya nag-establish or hinahanap pa niya yung identity niya, and also bago pa lang din siya nag-build ng kanyang structure. So yan. Pero ang maganda sa startup is parang pre-style siya in a way that it's also exploring. While sa big companies kasi meron na silang established technologies. So mga parang gano'n. So meron na rin silang standards. And then may mga standard procedure or processes. Ano yung mga kailangan mong gawin. And then may mga roles na talaga silang nakadefine. Unlike sa startup kasi pwede kang maging parang developer as well as QA ka na. Pwede ka na. So multiple roles. So yun. May mga pa rin naman, big companies na medyo messed up yung structure. So minsan parang startup lang din yung kanilang style. Pero yan, depende yan sa hinahabol mo. So yan, pagka gusto mo na medyo pagka pre-style yung work, usually startup, pero mas mas demanding siya. Pero kung gusto mo na medyo controlled yung working time mo, and yeah, may better processes, big companies ka, mas mataas ang growth. Ayun, yung growth mo sa startup is medyo hindi siya structured. Kasi kung ano yung ginagawa, kasi naghahanap, parang nagre-research and development pa lang din sila. So parang, mas marami ka siguro ma-encounter na technologies, unlike sa big companies na may specific standards na sila when it comes to what technologies you can use, parang gano'n. Let's say sa big companies bawal ang open source. Sa startup pwede ang open source. Parang gano'n. And then, parang mga ganun na. So, they both have their own, parang, mag-grow ka pa rin sa parehas. I think ang nakikita kong advantage ng big company din is more on mas ladderized sila. So, meaning, yung role mo is parang, kasi pag naging parang senior dev ka, since big company siya, you will be also you will also going to be considered as senior dev from other companies din, or much higher pa nga. So let's say nanggaling ka sa Google as senior dev, you can be you can be a CTO or a CIO on other companies. Parang ganun. So yun lang yung big advantage ng mga big companies. Minsan yung role mo is actually much higher role when it's converted to another company's role. Parang ganun. May factor ba siya may factor sa recruiter. May mga factor yun kasi dyan mag-reflect yung experience mo eh. Let's say nga, nanggaling ka sa Google, so may factor yan sa recruiter kasi since nanggaling ka sa Google, may impression yan na you are good, you're really good. Kasi it's Google eh, parang ganun. So, may factor din siya. Lalo na pagka iba yung reputation ng company. Tapos sa startup naman, most likely tatanungin kayo ano yung mga technologies na ginagamit nyo or ginawa nyo. Baka doon mag-boil down yung mga possible na maging criteria for your let's say interviews or assessment. So may pros and cons din naman yan. So yun, big company structured, startup parang freestyle. Yun nga sa akin na, that's my opinion, parang freestyle din yung startups. Na napansin ko may mga medyo matagal na sa industry nalipat. Di ko na-gets yan. Nalipat na po ng IBM, high pay siguro doon. Hindi ko na-gets yan. Do you mean galing from IBM or going to IBM? Going to IBM. Usually, pagka big companies did somehow do high payments sila, lalo na yung mga international. Madalas high paying sila. Since dollars yung kinikita eh. Hindi ko lang masabi kung madaming mamaw sa IBM. Kasi, tsaka depende rin yan sa pupuntahan mong IBM na services. Kasi most likely yung IBM kasi is a big companies eh. So may parang smaller may mga business services yan inside of IBM, the company itself. Ayun, I cannot say kasi hindi naman ako nanggaling sa IBM and wala akong kilala na nagtatrabaho sa IBM or nanggaling sa IBM. Okay na pala. So, picturean ko lang to para pagka chapter 21 na ako. Wait. Chapter 22 na pala ako. Bakit pupunta ka bang IBM? Oops. Oh shit. Nagusot. Yes, okay lang. Parang dumami. Dami naman ito. Nakakailang photos na ako. Mamaya mag-exceed mag-10 na to. Remote startup. Okay din, remote work from home. Minsan masarap din mag-office pagka naboboard ka. Nga lang, nakakainis din yung traffic. 10 pages lang. Na-hit ko yun. So, dito ako mag-stop. Ngayon pa siya ng label. Tapos, ito na ako sa chapter 20. I think ayusin ko lang saglit din yung aking GitHub ko. Ayusin ko lang. Medyo magulo yung aking task dito kasi. Okay, so here, oops, bakit na? Alright, so here, parang luma to. Parang iba. Ayun, data. So, later, gagawin ko is kunin ko rin TV ko. Chopper, huwag ka dyan. Alis ka dyan. Kulit ng aso ko. Okay, so may features tayo dito. So, ang mangyari is kasi ang liit nitong ano. Ayan. So derive. So I will use the keys here. RC derive. So I will search this one. Similarity searching sa DuckDB. Vector similarity search in DuckDB. Create table embeddings. Medyo kakaiba ta. Mag-aaral ako na to. The basic extension experimental. Until now, experimental siya. Anyways, so gagawin ko dito is you can use typically smaller models, often use small language model or SLMS to handle summarization while saving on your Mac. For tasks like where you're summarizing technical domain, choosing the right small model. So P-Mini 3.8, exceptional analytical parsing, logical reasoning, making it ideal for structured data. Gemma 3. I think I don't. Prices similar small efficiency SLMS. Smaller models generally have much higher tokens per se, allowing you to process your credits much faster. Sincere okay. P4. Ito, P4 reasoning meron. 14B. 9 gig lang siya. 16K context. Pero reasoning lang siya. Small model siya. Try ko nga to. 14B parameter. Really the best local AI, but it was trained only university notebooks, smart people's notes, so you don't get exactly the same level of proper understanding of the ilang gears. Wala namang siyang parang threshold. As long as nakikita mo na may growth, it's putting food in your tables, paying the bills, and you're nakakapag-save ka for your future or for your future goals. So may depende sa criteria mo. Siya. So yun, let's say sa akin, ang criteria ko is nakakapag-ipon ako, nakakain ako ng most of what I wanted, and nakapag-ipon, nakapagbayad ng bills. Yeah, and also may growth naman. Although ikaw yung magda-drive ng growth mo, not the other way around. Kasi supportive naman yung manager ko eh. So kung anong gusto kong parang growth, as long as it's going to benefit the organization. So yun. So that's why, and I'm still staying in the company. Pero pag may mas maganda na mag-offer ng beyond what I wanted, syempre lilipat ako. Pag ganun. Wala na ako dun sa pace ng being parang employee na masyadong loyal sa company. So, that may checklist ka lang kung masatisfy ba ng checklist mo kung you will stay sa company o hindi. Pero syempre, dapat it's a win-win solution. So, win-win situation both of you tsaka sa company. Syempre, kung mabibigyan niyo yung mga nasa checklist mo, dapat bigay mo rin yung what they needed. So, for me, walang recommend na ilang years. Depende yan sa criteria mo. Kasi mamaya, ang habol mo lang growth, hindi sahod. Tapos yun, nabibigay naman ng company mo yung growth pero mababa yung sahod. Pero para sa akin, kahit may growth ka tapos mababa sahod mo, magutom ka naman. Baliwala din yun. So yeah, depende sa criteria mo. Oh, okay. Okay, so PHI model is good for structured. Kaso magde-data mine ako eh. So parang hindi kita mako-consider siya. It for analytical, RAG, and summary tasks. I just need a 120 context version since 10K is very limiting. Oh, maganda tong comment na to. 14 quantized 8. Okay, mukhang I'm going to use VHI. So, okay. Okay, so here, wala akong documentation. Papagawin natin to. Integration, yes. Get the response from get the result and scrape the page of the given URL. Parse the web page. Convert the this one. Convert the content of the page into Markdown. Ingest the details from snippets and ingest the details from snippets and page content. So I think a question ko dito is, so ito muna tayo. Wait, mali yung wordings ko. Ingest the details from snippets. Summarize the details and page contents using LLM candidates, model, and SLMs. Small language models. V4 Quen. Probably try natin Gemma. Well, Gemma is not as SLM. Anyways, Quen 3.5 I guess. And Gemma. Now, summarize. The features documentation. Oh, okay. So meaning, yung features na isa-save ko sa database is not the JSON. Wondering that how do I know which the three results is the best? should I consider all three results? Consider okay. Mag-integrate na naman ako sa LLM. So meaning, gagawa ko ng data scraper ko. Kailangan ko itong i-structure. Yeah, I guess that's it muna. So, 3 a.m. na. Yeah, tuloy ko na lang yung chapter 22 later. So, mukhang maglalaro muna